chimp forgot the trees. So now he climbs through corporations and universities.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of What's So Funny, the show that probes the minds, the brains, and the psyches of the people who make the funny. Do you believe in ghosts? How about homeopathy? Have you ever been to a psychic? Do you go to church? If you answered yes to any of those questions, maybe the next hour isn't for you. But maybe it should be. Have you thought about that? We talked to skeptic comic Ian Harris, who was in town recently performing his critical and thinking show at Yuck Yucks. It was his first time playing in Canada. Hopefully, not his last. So put on your thinking caps and enjoy my conversation with comedian Ian Harris. Ian, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
First time in Vancouver?
Yeah, basically. Flown through it. You know.
First time as a comedian in Vancouver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Working on a Sunday night.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you're going to be at Yuck Yucks, which normally is dark on a Sunday night.
Right.
So, yeah, you see how that goes, I guess.
Yeah, I think...
but it's a special tour you're doing?
Yeah, I'm doing I taped an independent hour special that we have been negotiating with a certain cable network that I can't mention yet for 8 months now for an air date. So
is this your first time in negotiations for such a thing?
Yeah, I mean I've got other people doing it for me, but it was yes, it's a done deal. It's going to air in July, and then you know what, we have to wait a little bit. It won't be till September. Then we won't even know till September because we have to figure out a few things as far as, you know, the programming and this and that, but you're still in. It's all good. Everything's done. So it'll probably air January. Now it's okay. Well, do we have a date for January? Not a date yet, but it's still looking at January. But we won't know the date till November. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I was holding off, you know, waiting for I was planning on starting a tour in July to promote when it was going in July. And yeah. And then I finally got tired of sitting around, so I just said, I'm going to get back on the road and start promoting it early, even though I don't have an air date.
Yeah.
So that's
sometime in January. Just check your TV, check all the channels.
But I didn't want to get like completely fall out of relevancy, you know. But you also need something to promote. Usually, you know, I do. I like to, when I go on the road now, I don't like to just go do random clubs. It's not what I do.
Oh, you don't? But there was a time when you did that.
For 14 years, yeah.
14 years.
Yeah, 14 years, and I took 5 years off comedy.
To raise
my daughter, yeah.
Daughter.
And then I got back in 2 years ago, did the special, and got back into it with this idea that I can just kind of do, you know, because with 5 years off, I had to do other stuff. So I do a lot of voiceover work, and I do editing, and I directed music videos. I've done a bunch of other stuff. So I don't really need comedy like I used to. You know, I used to be 40 weeks of the year, 50 weeks out of the year on the road. And, you know, when something becomes a necessity, sometimes it's not fun anymore.
You know what, though? You will always need comedy. Well, just in your blood.
That's why I'm back doing it.
It's in your blood. You might not need it for work, but you got to keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I said after 5 years, I thought, okay, I guess I'm done with it. And then sure enough, I said to myself, I got to get back on stage just for me. And I don't care. I don't need to make a living. I don't care about anything. I'm just going to go up and do what I like doing. And I started doing that, and it's been the best 2 years of my life of comedy. And
because you changed your style too, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I used to just do standard comedy. I was known for impressions for a long time.
I know. I saw some online. And what I love is, you do some of the standard ones, but there are ones that I've never heard anyone do before.
Well, that was my thing, you know. Coming from San Francisco, they're very hypercritical of, you know, doing stuff that's hack or doing stuff that's been done.
Yeah.
You know, and impressions were second to maybe a guitar act in the days I started, where it's like, oh, that guy's doing song parodies, get out of here. And then it was impressions was like, oh, impressions. It was, you know, and props. That was the big three. So I said, well, if I'm going to do impressions, I'm going to do impressions that are A, pretty obscure, and B, do them in a way that is different. So maybe tell a story or do one long cohesive bit that doesn't have that has segues but doesn't have setups. That's not, here's so and so doing such and such. Just what if I did this big stream of consciousness and threw in 100 impressions, and I did that, and it became. I never got called a hack for it. All these people that I looked up to that I was always trying to impress or emulate would come up and say, "Hey, that was great." So, I remember one time I did a show this is 10 years ago in LA, and this little one nighter, and Andy Kindler was in the room, and Andy Kindler,
and he's the comedy police.
Yes,
he would come up to you.
Absolutely, he's like the comics comic, and I'm like, I'm doing impressions because I think somebody was there to see me from some agency, and they wanted to send me to like Mad TV or something like that. So I had to do the impressions, and I was like, Andy Kindler's in the room, and I did impressions. And when I got off stage, as I walk by him, and he grabs me, he goes, "Hey, that was a great Carlin." And I was like, "Awesome, yes, Andy Kindler just said great Carlin."
I was going to say I scribbled some down, and I'd never heard anyone do a George Carlin before.
Yeah,
Robert Stack,
Robert
Wagner, you were doing like who know? And as soon as you hear it, you go, "Yes, my God, that is Robert Stack. That's Robert Wagner."
John Malkovich, was one that
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Now, and the funny thing is, I don't know, like we were talking about earlier about being the longest running. I have not had anybody dispute this yet, but I think, to my knowledge, I may be the first person to do Christopher Walken on stage.
Oh, really? Because that's disputed.
Because everybody does it.
Yeah.
But the first person I ever saw do it anywhere that became popular was Jay Moore, when Jay Moore did it on Saturday Night Live. And that was 94, 95. And I had been doing it since 92. Mm-hmm. And I did it by accident. I didn't even try to do a Christopher Walken impression. I was doing improvisational impressions. That was one of the ways I tried to get away from doing, I'll let the audience do the setup, and then they can pick out who I want to do, and then I'm just going to do it. So I said, "Give me a movie," and somebody said True Romance, and I said, "Give me a occupation," and someone said post office. So I said, "Okay, here's my favorite scene from True Romance, set in a post office." And then I did that because I at the time I could do a Dennis Hopper impression. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know really. I mean, I knew who Christopher Walken was. I've seen The Deer Hunter and all that, but I couldn't even remember his name. I thought he wasn't this icon that he is now. He was just doing Pulp Fiction and these other films where he got the cult status. But before that, he was obviously an Academy Award-winning actor. But I just the guy from that scene. What's his name? The guy from The Deer Hunter. I wasn't even thinking Christopher Walken. I said, so here's the scene with Dennis Hopper. And I did it. And afterward, I got people coming up to me going, "Oh man, that Christopher Walken was amazing." And I was like, "Oh, Christopher Walken? Oh yeah, the True Romance thing. Okay." And then I started doing Christopher Walken. Like, oh, and some people would come to me and go, "Who is Christopher Walken?" People didn't even know who it was. And I go, "Oh, he's from The Deer Hunter. He was Annie Hall. He had a great part." And people, "Oh yeah, that guy. Oh, he's great. Yeah, I like him." And then the next thing you know, a couple years later, I see Jay Moore doing it on Saturday Night Live, and he does a great one. And the next thing you know, couple years down the road, everybody's doing Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Impressionists learn from each other, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's hard to nail the first time. Sometimes you hear somebody and you go, "What's their hook? What's their angle?"
Yeah.
They sound like regular people.
A lot of impressionists do impressions of other impressionists.
Mm-hmm.
I for a while, it was kind of a corporate thing and trying to make some money. And a friend of mine, Dave Burley, who's
I know Dave. He's been on the show.
Oh, okay, cool.
He does great impressions too.
And Dave and I used to have a show called Real Impressions, and it was the two of us. We did dueling impressions for corporate gigs. So we would go do a week with Microsoft, and we would do these kind of Daily Show type interviews of people, and we would do all kinds of weird stuff, and then we would do a live show that included impressions, and we would do sometimes a talk show, and we would cut live via satellite, which would be pre-taped segments where he was the host, would interview these celebrities, and it was always me or him dressed up as a celebrity, and it was pre-taped, but we made it look like we had the timing down, so it looked like he'd ask a question, and it would kind of cut out, and then we would answer it, but it was all pre-timed. And then he'd go, "Oh, let's see, I think De Niro's on." And we got De Niro, and he would, "Hey, how you doing?" And he would come on live. And it was really funny, but there was so many, when we stopped doing it, I stopped doing impressions completely, and I took time off comedy, and he was like, "Man, some of these bits that we did are so great."
Now he's got a movie doing them all.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, when we did it, I did the Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, he does Charlie Sheen.
And he couldn't do Charlie Sheen. He goes, "Well, you do Charlie Sheen." And I did Charlie Sheen, and he did Owen Wilson, I think. And we talked back and forth. And then when I stopped doing it, he said, "Well, do you mind if I still do those bits?" And I was like, "No, of course not. Go ahead and do it." He said, "Can you help me with the Charlie Sheen?" because I need to be able to do both parts. And now he nails Charlie Sheen, and he just was in a movie playing he was Charlie Sheen in a movie. It was awesome, and it's like, but yeah, that was how.
What was that movie? Do you remember?
I think it's called Not Another Celebrity Movie.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's funny. It's just sometimes you have to, he does a fantastic Vince Vaughn, and I can't do it that great, but I can do it a lot better now that if I hear him do
because you hear him,
I can copy him a bit, Yeah.
So these impressions are just out of your act now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do still do characters and stuff because that's just kind of my style. I still will.
Is it tempting to throw them in there? Because you're going to get the response.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get requests all the time. I mean, even other comics come up to me, and there's a comic in LA that every time I see him, he goes, "Oh man," and he's not like somebody I know really well, but I'll just run into him once a year or something at the Comedy Magic Club, and he'll pass me in the hall. And go, James Spader. Nobody does James Spader.
I know. There's another one. Yeah.
And he goes, "How come you don't do it anymore?" Like, I don't know. It's not what I do. But I've thought about it. Is there a way I can ever do them in the context of what I'm doing now without feeling like I've sold out or something? Like, is there ever a need for them? And there might be. I mean, there might be at some point a need to do an impression and
if one of these guys all of a sudden adapts some new age spiritual thing that you can take them to task for, maybe.
Right, absolutely.
Right? Because now you're doing stuff on rational thinking and skepticism.
Yeah. Which is, that's been, I was born, as we all are, I was born with no beliefs, but I never was indoctrinated in any kind of religion. Like so many people, especially, in the States, there's so many people that are just born into something, and I never had that. So for me,
now they will say you're missing out.
Yes, I'm sure I am. But but my mom is very new agey. My mom,
she's a heathen.
Yeah, my mom, no, she's Hindu.
Oh, really?
And she was raised Irish Catholic, straight Irish parents, but she's Hindu, and she's a psychic, and she's all the stuff that the groups I belong to would just be going after. But that's what I grew up with. So
she was that when you were a kid?
Since I was born. I mean, she changed her name when I was 5 because of numerology.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think partly because she wanted to get away from her parents or her family or life, whatever, But she changed her name because it was numerologically safe or something. I don't know, but yeah, she's very into the new age thing.
Did you believe her as a kid?
I think yes and no. I believed. To me, it was normal. It was normal. Like, if you talk about ghosts and you talk about psychic abilities and stuff, to me, it was a normal thing where it's like, yeah, well, that is what it is. I guess like religious people who talk about Jesus and or Muhammad or whatever they believe, to them, it's not even questioned. It's like, well, yeah, everybody does that, right? And I think I had that, a little bit of that, but the difference is that my dad doesn't believe in any of that stuff. And my dad is not necessarily I guess he is an atheist, but if you asked him, he wouldn't know. Like you'd go, "Hey, Dad, what do you believe in?" "I don't know, bunch of crap." That's just kind of how he is.
They're still together?
No. They've been divorced for years, since I was 11.
What, do you think that played a part?
No, I mean, I think I'm just, my whole family is pretty. My sister's pretty. We're kind of a comedic family. We like making fun of people. I guess we our whole lives it was kind of. That kind of stuff was silly to us. So, I remember one time I was staying at a friend's house when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I said, "Oh, can I stay at so-and-so's house tonight?" And he said, "Sure." I go, Sunday they told me to bring something nice because they're going to church. My dad goes, "No, I'll just rescue you." And it was like...
Your dad said that?
Yeah. It was like, "No, you're not. And it wasn't like, you don't have to. It was like, there's no way in hell you're going to go to a church. I'm not giving you a suit to wear to go to some damn church. So it was kind of like seen in our family as kind of ridiculous, yet... My dad didn't believe in my mom's stuff. That's probably one of the reasons that they divorced, because they're totally different people. But my mom is very smart, and my dad is very smart. My dad's not necessarily very educated. He didn't, I think he left school when he was like a freshman or something. But he's a smart guy and an analytical guy. So I kind of, even growing up, when I had these ideas of, well, there's ghosts, but I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe in a soul or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm like, so I always tried to explain it rationally. I'm like, well, listen, my mom says there's ghosts and she's seen them and it's a thing, of course. So what is it then? And that was the hard part for me, is trying to figure out, well, it must be some kind of weird energy thing that we don't know what it is yet. But then why is it, and that's why I do bits in my active hours. Like, well, then why are they wearing clothes then? I mean, this is weird. Like, do the clothes have energy? Do the clothes have a soul? What is this? It doesn't make any sense. So I would do, I always tried to figure it out logically. And I think by the time I just got, 15, 16 years old, I was like, okay, I keep coming up with excuses and there just isn't any, it just doesn't make sense, and so many of the things.
That's right. As soon as you take it 2 or 3 levels deep in your questioning, you're going to run into these roadblocks.
Yeah.
Like, why do they have clothes? And it'd be interesting. Like, do you have people in the audience come up to you who maybe believed something that you're talking about, and they try to challenge you on it, or conversely go, "You got a great point there. Like, I never thought of that," because they only really think of it at a surface level or just below that.
Well, the funny thing is, I just spent this Thursday, this whole weekend really, but I performed Thursday down they had the CFI, which is the Center for Inquiry, the National Summit. I don't know if it was maybe international, but it was the big year summit thing, and they had it this weekend down in Tacoma. And, and it's just tons of talks from physicists and skeptics and magicians, and it's this great, great thing. And I kept talking to, repeatedly when we talk, we get into conversations with people, and everyone had so much similar thing, where you would be speaking with somebody, a believer of something, and you just give them 1 or 2 basic questions, stuff that the people in the community, the skeptic community, it's 101. It's like the first thing you ask.
Yeah.
And to you, it seems like obvious, and why would you not ask it? And the majority of your average people go, huh, I've never even thought of that.
Isn't that amazing?
And you go, well, you've never even thought to think of it. Like, you really never thought about it. No. Wow. How is that? It's like driving and going, I never thought about opening my eyes before I got in a car. Really? It seems like the most basic thing in the world. The first question you ask is, and I think that, but I also get, so I do get that a lot. And I do get, the I'll pray for you stuff a lot. And, but I think, it's
refusing to even entertain the question.
Yeah. But, a lot of my shows are preaching to the choir. I mean, I do shows like tonight on an off night, and I market to, I let people know what's happening. I let people know what they're
You're at the Skeptic Society or whatever in each city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they always bring out a group. And then I always,
and they love to hear this, because we don't often see this in entertainment. Somebody thinking rationally.
Well, that's my.
I mean, you may get snippets of it here and there, but not all across the board, and hitting all their pet causes.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the funny thing is that you get people that are kind of into it, like they, the people that will see an article, because I do get a lot of, when I go into town, usually I get a lot of, depending on also the bigger the city, it's harder obviously, but if it's a mid-sized city or a smaller town, I get a lot of press because it's interesting. People go, well, this is a different kind of comedy, or oh, this guy might be controversial. Let's see what we can. So I get people who read an article,
especially in the heartland.
Absolutely, and they'll see this article and they go, oh, I'm kind of like that. I'm kind of on the fence. Let me go see what this guy's about. And they're open-minded, but they may not have been really. They may not be in the skeptical community per se, but they are open-minded and they see themselves as that way. So they're curious, exactly, and they'll come out to the show. And the funny thing is I get people who, because I cover a lot of topics, I get people who will laugh for 45 minutes about all this silliness, quote unquote, that I'm talking about. Oh yeah, ghosts are ridiculous. Oh yeah, that's ridiculous. Oh, that's ridiculous. But then, and everyone's laughing. There's 200 people in the room. They're all laughing, including you. Then all of a sudden I get to a bit that, I do something about alternative medicine. And hold on, I subscribe to alternative medicine. And then they go,
because of big pharma, man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is that then they see that they're not laughing, but everybody else still is. And what that does is it makes this connection. It kind of builds this little bridge that goes, wait a second, is my thought on this as silly as the way I perceived these other thoughts to be, and it goes across the board because you have alternative medicine, which is I talk about, which I don't just discount all alternative medicine, but the bit I do about it, you would think of that as more of a liberal thing. Yet religion usually affects the conservative people.
Yeah.
So the conservative people hate it when I start talking about Jesus, but they love it when I talk about Islam, and they love it when I talk about alternative medicine. The people that are in a quote like a liberal, more of a liberal camp, love it when I'm talking about Jesus, but when I talk about alternative medicine, they go, well. So that's what I think is interesting is that people will go, hey, everything you did was great, but that one thing, and I've had a lot of people go, I got to go home and read up a couple things because I don't know if you're accurate, and now sometimes I'll get emails saying, okay, you were right, thanks, which has happened to me like 3 times now.
Well, yeah, all they have to do, they don't have to just believe you, right? They just have to apply that same level of critical thinking to anything that they're believing or interested in.
Yeah.
And come to their own conclusions.
Right.
But they have to ask it honestly and as deeply as they do these other things.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, that's to me, it's about this. It's critical thinking. It's critical thinking. It's applying, in a sense, the scientific method to things. So it's not so much that I think I'm right, because that's the beauty of science. Science changes, which is funny when you get into arguments with people that don't understand science, or devoutly religious people, and they go, oh, well, you're just as devout about science, or
that's a religion.
Yeah, or you have faith in science. It's like, no, science. The difference is that science will say they don't know, and they look for the answers, and if the answers change, they change their belief based on the new evidence. Whereas faith is the exact opposite.
And rigorous testing.
Exactly, and faith is the opposite. You have something, and it's 100%. You believe it. And you believe it despite the evidence that's shown to you, and it's almost an
well, you can't prove it's not true,
right? Exactly, so that's what I love about it. It's like critical thinking doesn't mean, hey, my points are right, but hey, maybe you should be looking at things this way, and if down the road something comes along that changes what I believe, I'll write a new bid on it. I'll stop doing the bid that I'm doing now and move on to something else.
Yeah, but then they also say, look at that. Science got that wrong before, and now they think this. So obviously, you can't trust science.
Right.
But it's not quite like that.
Which is such a that's and I think that's my point. It's such a misunderstanding of science. Science isn't necessarily. Yes, you can say it was wrong, but science isn't necessarily wrong because science is a process, and you get stuff wrong in order to get it right later. That's how things work. We have a working model based on probability and based on the current evidence, and when that changes, our belief changes. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was wrong, but it got us to the next point, and which might be the correct one, and that might change. And we may eventually find an ultimate truth or an ultimate fact, and we may not. But we may keep pushing. Look at how the universe, it was a big bang, and eventually there was going to be a big crunch. And then there was no big crunch. Then it was going to expand forever. And they're still out as to what is ultimately going to happen, or exactly what happened at the very beginning. But the meat of the creation of the universe, from a physics point of view, they all pretty much agree on. Most physicists agree on the basic terms of it. The exact things that we can't know right now, or we don't know right now. There's a few different hypotheses or theories that are up in the air, and one of them will maybe prove to be right, and maybe none of them will. But that's not what's important. The rest of it's what's important. And the process, if you know something, you stop looking for it. And that's the problem with that kind of like faith-based belief. Is if you already know, well, then you don't need to look for the answers. And if you
or you're looking for the answers that support your cause,
right,
or
exactly.
your beliefs,
right, exactly. But if you know how the universe was created in your heart or whatever, you feel it, well then, okay, so we should not do any physics or cosmology because you already know. Well, that's where does progress? There's no progress in that. There's no forward progress in the study of the universe, the study of the earth, of humanity. If you know all the answers already, well then why are we here?
You're talking about physics and all this. Now, most people don't think of, I'm going to go to a comedy show and be lectured.
Right.
right? How do you keep it so it's still fun and funny and not talking over the heads of people who maybe aren't as into individual theories or studies as you are?
I think, well, I do it with, I do a lot of characters, and I try to make it fairly universal, and I do a lot of explaining. I'm very wordy. I've been called spoken word before, but there are times when the crowd is just, they didn't know what they were coming for. Most of the time they have an idea, but there are times, I did 4 shows this weekend, and the last show was a smaller crowd. They were very reserved. They were reserved there were 2 or 3 openers that didn't do what I do, just did regular stand-up comedy, and they were very reserved for those comics. And then I got up there, and it was tight. I mean, they all stayed, and they all enjoyed it for the most part. There were a few that looked like they weren't, but most people came up and said something to me afterward, and I got laughs and all that. But I asked at one point, I go, do you people know why? Did you just come in off the street, see Comedy Club? And, how many people of you are like, consider yourself like faith, people of faith? And it was a good chunk of people. And I said, wow, you are at the wrong show.
Or the right show.
Well, yeah, well, but it was, and you could see like one woman who was just scowling, but her husband or boyfriend was dying laughing. And then he would look over at her, and then he'd have to get straight faced. And it was
like your parents.
What's that? Yeah, exactly. But it's so yeah, I'm always going to run into that. And I've had club owners before twice. I actually had a guy say one time, he goes, hey, tomorrow night, can you put on the clown nose? And I go, excuse me? He goes, these people aren't here to learn, they're here to laugh. And I go, well, first off, that crowd was horrible. And they just weren't a big laughing crowd from nobody was getting great laughs. Second of all, I'm not lecturing. What I'm doing is funny. I go, they may not think it's funny. There are people that don't think Def Jam's funny. There are people that don't think Carrot Top's funny, and there are people that do. And I said, this is what I do, and I'm not gonna put on a clown nose. Are you kidding me? How insulting is that? And then the next night I came back, and my wife was with me, and he said something to like, well, your husband better be funny tonight. She goes, oh, he's funny every night. And I went up and I killed with the exact same material.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, it's the vagaries of comedy are fascinating. Yeah. One night, just get the right mix of people in the room, and you blow the roof off.
Yeah.
Another night, they're sitting on their hands.
Yeah, I mean,
staring. It's no reflection. It doesn't mean the next. You have one bad night. You just proved it. Doesn't mean the next night no one's going to enjoy it. The same people aren't coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and my percentage, obviously, with what I'm talking about. My percentage is, especially, it depends on where you go too. I mean, if I'm in Australia or England, I got a much higher chance of success because of the amount of people that would consider themselves irreligious or secular or whatever. Depending on what part of America I'm in, I may have a low batting average if I'm just in regular clubs, which is why I like to target directly. And I'm hoping once the special comes out, brings my notoriety up a little bit more, I'm going to get people who are just coming to see what I do.
Yeah, but I kind of like that you go out there and maybe change some minds or get people thinking.
Yeah, well, that's the goal,
Preaching to the choir. It's a funny way of putting it for a secularist.
Right, but, exactly.
But it's, it's good for you because everyone's on board.
Yeah.
But I kind of like spreading the gospel to those...
it's funny. I mean, every time I do any kind of interview, I always bring up, and he probably thinks I'm stalking him now, but I always bring up Doug Stanhope, and he's one of the guys. Like, I'm not like good friends with him or anything. I mean, I'm friendly with him. I've worked with him many times in the past. It's been years, but we worked together one time, 96 or something like that, doing one-nighters in Colorado, just like a week of one-nighters through Colorado, and that guy will say anything. And and there was a period where he just did regular comedy, and then there was a period where he got very political, and that time I thought was his best, because he was still just would say anything he wanted, and we'd be dirty or shocking or whatever you want to call it, but always had a point, and it was always well written, and it was always the verbiage was really tightly put together and fearless, and I would see him die, and then I'd see him kill. And see people I saw somebody, I remember in Boulder, Colorado, want to kill the guy. Like, it's like cowboy guys in the back because of something he said about John Benet Ramsey or something like that. And it was hilarious. And the guy, he just was completely fearless. And I'm like, man, I wish, I've never seen anybody charge a stage, and maybe it's happened, but some of the stuff that guy says and some of the reactions I've seen from people, I think, how is this guy doing this? And he does very well now. He does his own thing. And it's just, it's crazy.
What I love about him is he now attracts Stanhope fans exclusively, and he still manages to piss them off sometimes.
Absolutely.
Like he doesn't want to just, get nodding heads in the audience. He wants to find what they think and make them think a little bit.
Yeah. It's funny because Paul Provenza does, he did the book, The Satiristas, and he does TAM every year, which is the amazing meeting. It's the another big skeptic conference that James Randi puts on in Las Vegas. And it's a huge thing. And he does the Satiristas show. And,
do you go?
Yeah, I didn't get to go this last year. I wanted to. The funny thing is the director of my special, Emery, who's a comic, he's friends with them, and he's got a atheist podcast and a skeptic podcast, and he's good friends with Provenza, and I said, hey, you think you could ask him if he can put me on the, I mean, there's not too many guys just doing skeptical comedy. It's perfect for TAM. Please put me on your Satirista show. And he asked him, and whether this is just something he said or if this is honestly what he feels. I always believe it's honestly what he feels, and he said the problem with Ian is that for this crowd, he goes, is that my theme Satiristas is not about preaching to the choir. So he would bring in somebody like Stanhope would do it, and it's like he might say something that doesn't. He probably will say stuff that doesn't go along with what these people think, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is his show is about going against the system, and even though I may be going against the system in mainstream at TAM, I am the system. So he was like, no, that's too spot on for this festival.
Interesting, but I don't know if that's. I mean, you read the chapters in Satiristas, and there are a lot of people in there who you go, well, they're pretty on the nose.
Yeah,
Lewis Black's just railing against whatever. It's not
Yeah.
satire so much.
Yeah,
I
guess know. I accept that explanation. I really would have loved to do TAM. I think it would have been awesome. And I did the CFI summit on Thursday, and it was they're a very reserved, attentive crowd, and often socially awkward. So you never know, like, are they enjoying this, or are they, because they're clapping and they're laughing, but it's not the same kind of laughter you get in a theater or even a comedy club where it's just they're people out to have a good time. So sometimes you go, oh man, I hope they're enjoying this. But all week, the rest of the weekend, it was, every single person was coming up to me going, that was amazing. That was so great. Why don't we see you more at these? And so it was really, really cool to have this group of people that have probably, some of them, I would say a good chunk of them have never been to a comedy club. I talked to some of them and it's, it's just not, they've never been to a comedy club. So
yeah, that's amazing too.
Yeah, but it was cool to do comedy for skeptics and have them say, and a lot of them didn't realize that I've been a skeptic and I've been a member of CFI since all my adult life basically, and they come up, wow, you hit all the stuff we talk about here dead on the nose. Like this is they were acting, they thought, wow, what a coincidence almost that you really did your research. So
just a comic, yeah.
Yeah. And no, I didn't just do my research. That's what I do.
I haven't been to any skeptic events in Vancouver. Is there a big scene? Do you know? I know you reached out to them.
There is a CFI chapter up here, Center for Inquiry, and I think it's like 400 or 500 people, which is pretty good size for at least on the groups. They may be much bigger. Their membership may be much bigger, but on the internet groups, the Facebook pages and the meetup groups, I think that's what they were. And there's a humanist, a secular humanist group up here as well, which is actually, I did a show called Skepticality, and somebody from up here heard me on there, and we got an email. My partner / manager person got an email from a couple people up here and said, when are you guys coming up here? And at the time I was with this tour, the Evolution of Comedy tour thing that it was myself and two other comics. And And they said, we'll get all the humanists. We'll make it an event. We'll come out if you guys come up here. So I didn't have the whole tour with me, but I happened to be in Tacoma for 3 days. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing a Sunday. So I had my partner call Yuck Yucks and say, hey, we've got these people that want to come out. Do you have a Sunday is this Sunday open, and would you work with us? And they said, yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah. So this worked out really well.
Oh, you talked about England and Australia maybe getting a bit better reaction because they're more secularists there, and it's not as religious a society. Have you played much in Canada?
No,
never. This is it?
This is it. First time. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what you think. But I tend to think that we are like that too. When I see someone, and I meet people who go to church,
right.
But it always startles me for a minute.
Right.
I just go, wow, people still do that. It's not nearly as common.
Right.
And, maybe I'll get letters now. I don't know. But that's my sense from the difference between the States and Canada. The religions and the religious people don't have a lot of pull in government.
Right.
Although our current prime minister is a little bit. I think he's a born again.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure on that. But that's how much it isn't in your face up here.
Right.
I'm not even sure that that's true, but I think that is true.
Yeah, it's not George W. Bush with his,
right.
I got a call from God today. But yeah, I think the statistic was they did it this weekend. They went one of the speakers was talking about secularism in people in America under 25 and how it's at 30% now, which is the highest, way higher than it's ever been, and how it's and they're talking about how it's going up like 1% every year, and it's really rapidly on the rise. But then they said, look at Australia's over 50%, England's 50%, and I think they said Canada was 40% of people that don't believe in any, they say are pretty much consider themselves atheists. So that's like quite a bit higher than the 12% of total people in the U.S., 12 or 15 or whatever it is. It's a pretty low number. So 40% is pretty significant, and I would be willing to bet that a great chunk of the other people, even if they have some kind of belief, they're not, like you said, they're not like Bible thumpers. They're not, especially almost every Canadian I meet is right on board. I start talking to them, and it's like you're definitely not a Bible thumping American. I can,
it's. I think you made this good point. I read an interview with you where you said that maybe the religion isn't there, but we've attached your religious in other facets of your life.
Yeah,
explain that a bit.
Well, that's the funny thing is you see that a lot you see that a lot in England. Actually, England is very irreligious, but they're really into superstition and paranormal stuff. Ghost stuff over there is huge. They're big into the alternative medicine and different things. Yeah, and they get very religious about it. And I know a lot of people that are, former Catholics, former this, former that, who, they may still have a belief. They may go, well, I believe in some kind of higher power, but I don't have a religion. And then you start talking to them, and they're religious about the food they eat. Everything's got to be organic, and it's got to be this and that, it's got to be that, and they're religious about, or they have some kind of sort of other new age spiritual thing where they go, yeah, I'm not religious, but I do this thing. They have some kind of other spiritual thing, or ghosts, or it just gets transferred to something else. And I think the difference is that there are people who get there via critical thinking, and there are people who get there because they just can't believe it anymore, or they don't like the religion, or the religion's let them down, or they realize the absurdity of it. It's just so absurd that I cannot believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth, so they get rid of that. But they haven't really changed their thought process. Their thought process still isn't about weighing the evidence and being critical. So the next thing that comes into that somebody throws at them, a conspiracy theory or something, they latch onto it because they still kind of have have that need for a cause, and they still haven't put the critical thinking tools together. So although they've gotten rid of the stuff that religion that's my dad's religion, and you go, oh wow, there's good critical thinking person. Yeah, but that the aliens are coming tomorrow, and you're like, no,
the conspiracy theory, you brought that up, and I love conspiracy theories. I don't believe most conspiracy theories, but I don't think that we should just discount them.
No.
You have to look at them and ask the critical questions. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Probably isn't.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't think you can just go, conspiracy, not throw them out.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay,
Well, and
so
I
we're on
think-
board there. You know, and just like I'm fascinated with UFOs or anything else like that. I don't believe them, but I love to watch these things on them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the whole the conspiracy thing. When you think about it, in the old days, the conspiracy theory that was questioning the norm. That was, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, where it's you're supposed to trust the government. You're supposed to do, and then there was, wait a second, they're using this trust to get one over on us in these couple of areas or whatever, and there are times when you say, well, you know what, there's some validity to this. You can't trust it like a religion. You have to question it, and so I think conspiracy theories are part of the original, are part of being skeptical. But then it gets to a point where you're skeptical of everything, or you're skeptical of the government or whatever it is that you're skeptical of, so that any opposing view you just latch onto, and then you're not skeptical, and that's what happens with the conspiracy theory, the nuts, where it's like everything you throw at them, the Alex Jones types or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, aliens are doing this, and the government's trying to poison you, and the government's doing mind control, and the fluoride in your water is going to do this, and then yeah, I believe that, because I don't trust the government.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like,
filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
Right? The government lied before, therefore they're lying this time, and here's what they did. There's no evidence of that.
Right.
We just know that they lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And this happened, so therefore that must have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. But not ascribing to conspiracy theories doesn't mean you should, just trust what I mean, as we can see with the NSA and other things. There have been there's a reason that there's a word conspiracy, because people have conspired to do things in the past. I mean, and even if it's on a smaller scale, where it's like these three people, got together and decided to knock somebody off and frame somebody else. That has happened.
Yeah.
There's no way you can say that.
What I like to say is the 9/11 conspiracy theorists. I go, even if you accept the official explanation, which I do, that was still a conspiracy. It was on the other side. They conspired. They hijacked some planes. They agreed at this time we're going to do it.
Right.
And they followed through on their plan. That is a conspiracy.
And there may even be some kind of, I'm one of these people that I remember when 9/11 happened, and saying, coming into, I was editing or working in an editing facility at the time, and everybody was watching it on the TV in the lounge, and everyone was watching it, and every day I'd come in and I'd see a new news report, and I remember at one point they were starting going, I said something about, all right, we're going back to Iraq, and people got upset with me. They said, oh, you're talking politics and whatever, and this time, and yeah, and they said, it was Osama bin Laden, and he's not Iraqi, and this and that. I go, oh, I know, but I have a feeling that from the beginning, putting W in here, where it's all of his daddy's thing. We've been trying to go to Iraq for a while, and I go, we're going to go back to Iraq. They'll find a way to make this go back to Iraq, and then a little while later, it was all of a sudden the weapons of mass destruction, and then if we as soon as we find them, we're going in. And then I remember coming in and going, we're not going to find anything, and we're still going to go to Iraq. And I got into an argument with somebody. They said, they've publicly said, if they come clean, that we're not going in. And then I remember came in, I walked in, whatever it was, however many days or weeks later, and it was, if Osama bin Laden doesn't get out of his country in 48 hours, we're going in. Mm-hmm. Even though after we had discovered that there wasn't anything there. And the person I argued with looked at me and went, how'd you know that? I go, it's just politics. And then, do you think that that he had anything to do? And then it was like the conspiracy. Well, did we start 9? No, I don't believe that we did it ourselves. But I think they found a convenient opportunity to use certain things to their advantage. Mm-hmm. But that's not the same as other people will take that and turn that into, then there must have been some conspiracy with the Bush administration to make it happen and blow it into this. But no, I'm not saying. Nowhere do I think it's a conspiracy, but I do think politics is they're going to find a way to make it work to their advantage, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of that goes on, but that doesn't always mean that go back to the very beginning, and therefore it was all planned out in this master plan, and that's what most people do. I think that the conspiracy theory that people, they has to be one extreme or the other,
It's having a faith in an answer that maybe isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I find from my readings on skeptical blogs or websites that every group, every person, every writer has a pet theme, a pet topic that they love, whether it's, as I mentioned, homeopathy or conspiracies or big pharma.
Right.
Or, not alternative medicine, religion.
Right.
Like, do you have one where you just takes most of your interest, or is it just the broad critical thinking of all across the board that really interests you?
I think it's the broad critical thinking, although religion kills me the most, because the more we know about the universe, the more we know about, the world, and the more you read religious texts, it's so hard for me to believe. I mean, I get why somebody might believe in ghosts or psychics. I've had ghost type experiences. I've been in weird, creepy places. They're scary. I've been in places where, they say there are places that just for whatever reason, that may be unexplained, or maybe, that there are things that creep you out, and there are things that make you kind of, that you see, hallucinate. I mean, there are things that make people freak out when you go into it. Might just be your brain.
Imagination's working.
Exactly. And I can see why, you can have those beliefs. But when I look at something like religion, it's to me, if you believe that book is the word of an all-powerful creator, yet you throw out 90% of what it says, which most people do. You say, "Oh, so how come you shave your head? You shave your side of your face. You're not allowed to do that." "Oh, well, we don't really believe that." "Well, how come you don't? How come you shake a woman's hand? I mean, what if she's, if she's on her period, you just touched a woman. You can't touch a woman who's on her period. That's a
Is that
sin.
in the Bible?"
Absolutely. And it's like all these things that, well, we don't believe that anymore. We don't believe that anymore.
Right.
You don't believe 90% of your beliefs. Why believe the other 10%? And it's just, do you really believe that a talking snake, the world is 6,000, the universe is 6,000 years old, and that a talking snake told a chick to not eat some fruit, and then she ate some fruit, and therefore everyone has to burn in hell forever? And then because, I just don't want to absolve everybody, instead I'll have somebody and kill him, so that if you accept that weird little bribe, that then you don't have to burn in hell. Really? Like,
that sounds plausible.
Yeah, to me, that's like, that is so insane. And nobody ever applies that to another religion. Nobody. If you ask a Christian why he doesn't believe in it, why he's not Muslim, their answer is, "Well, it's just not for me." Well, how do you know? You've never read the Quran.
Or don't they just have their beliefs in the Christian religion, so they know that the others must be wrong? Because if this is true, then all the others can't be.
Right.
We're wrong. All the other religions are wrong.
Yeah, so to me, I think that's the most mind-boggling thing of all, is that people, normal, sane people who know how to operate a television and aren't scared of electricity, and and don't do witch hunts anymore, or whatever, that still believe in some of the stuff that's in the Bible. And you look at like the Westboro Baptist Church type people, and you go, how do these people operate on a daily basis? I mean, it's so bizarre to me, and even just as bizarre, although I actually respect them more, are the people that, like the Amish type, or the type that live as if it's still the 16th century or whatever. They don't have the electricity and these things, because at least they're doing their best to live the way. That makes
no sense either, because the Bible wasn't written in the 16th century.
Right, absolutely.
Why don't they live like the first century?
But my point is, like, at least they're following it. They're following more of the laws. Yeah. You know what I mean? But but that's so nuts to me. Like I said, even though I respect that a little bit more, it's even crazier to me that you're living in the 16th century. Why? Mm-hmm. Really? Like, I mean, did you really think that your God is up there and wants you to live like it's the 16th century?
No progress.
It's crazy to me. Like, why would you think that that's?
again,
from one book that you read.
It's all these second-level questions that you have to them that
right.
Maybe they don't ask themselves.
Right.
Or the answer is just simply, well, God wants it.
Right.
And then you don't think that next level question.
And how do you know?
Yeah, how do you know? Why would he want you to?
Right.
You know, all the dietary restrictions of some religions, or you have to wear something or not. And,
yeah, I mean, that's how many people do you know? I mean, we're not. If you're a Christian, you're not supposed to eat shellfish. I don't know any Christian that doesn't eat shellfish. You know, I mean, it's like there's so many things in the Bible.
I don't eat shellfish.
Well, see, there you go.
I just don't like it.
No, but you know that it's. You ask them, well, how come you don't do that? Well, that those things are outdated. It's like no, you can't. It's either the word of an all powerful God or it's not. You can't just make and you want to pick and choose, and then at the same time. They'll tell you that we have to have the Bible and we have to have belief in God because otherwise we have no absolute morals. Absolute morals only come from God and we can't make up our own morals. Really? Yet you can pick and choose which morals of the Bible. So you've got your own moral compass. You're not killing,
stoning people.
Right? Yeah. For working on a Saturday or whatever. I mean, that's in the Bible that person should be put to death for answering their phone on the Sabbath. So. You don't adhere to that.
They had phones
in
the
exactly.
Bible?
Well, yeah, right. No, but it's which is funny too. Is it the Sabbath? Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? Who knows? Let's just take all 3 days off. Yes. But why do they? You ask them that, and well, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Oh, so you're making your own moral judgment that contradicts God's moral judgment.
Right.
Yet I can't make my own moral code because I'm an atheist.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting too, because if you're going by the Christian religion and Jesus was in the year around 0,
right?
And before that, there were centuries. Everyone agrees. Christians agree. There were centuries.
Yes.
Well, they lived kind of morally.
Yeah.
It's just civilization. You don't kill other people.
Yeah.
You don't steal from them. You can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, And to me, it's there's like the standard response is, so if you think that you couldn't be moral without God,
by all means,
yeah,
please believe.
Yes, and if you don't think you could live without. You think if you didn't have that book or you didn't have the fear of hell, that you would be out raping and murdering and killing and doing whatever, stealing, then you're a dangerous sociopath. And you should, I mean, really? I mean, yeah. I don't know anyone who
Those
goes,
people,
yeah,
I want them to be religious.
Yes, exactly. But do you know anybody that really go, oh yeah, if I didn't go to church on Sundays, I'd be killing and robbing. No, nobody just says that. It's just, so you come up with it on your own. But so to me, that stuff is just, but it's all part of critical thinking. But that's, I get why people believe some weird paranormal stuff, and also, it all makes you feel good too. It's fun to be psychic.
Well, that's the argument. They'll say, "Well, who's it hurting? Really, it's
right.
just my belief."
Well, yeah, except for unless you're trying to pass laws, or you're, or let me look at alternative medicine, or there are people that have, there's these cancer clinics where people are going and not getting proper treatment and dying when they could have probably gone and got treatment and gone into remission, and
right.
there was a highly treatable form of cancer in a lower stage that they ignore because Western medicine is bad or whatever, and it's like, well, I'm just going to
there will be one person who had cancer who goes to an alternative clinic. And maybe it was a misdiagnosis, or maybe it went into remission naturally. Yeah. And that'll be the one person they hang on to and go, well, you see? Yeah. It works.
And that person will be a lifer. That person there's nothing you could ever do to shake that person's faith after that point. Yeah. You could show them all the evidence you want, and they'd be like, well,
worked for me.
I did it. Yeah. So I'm proof. It's like prayer. They prayed for me and I survived.
What do you make of the people who, and this is more common now, that are just spiritual? Well, I don't believe in a man in the sky, but there is something, and it's just so murky. They define it any way they want. Right. It's nature, or it's.
Yeah, I actually, like I said, I think I honestly have less respect for that, because to me, what defines? I mean, you're just making it up, I guess. Because at least religious people, they have a text that they believe in. I think it's ridiculous that they believe in a text for no apparent reason or because their parents told them to believe in that specific text. But at least they have a text that they think is written by something that they read it and they go, yep, that's what a God would say if there was a God. And they're convinced by that. And they say, okay, this is what these laws are and this is what I'm supposed to believe. And it's written, it's divinely written. But if you say that's a bunch of crap, but I still believe in some sort of intelligent power so you're just making up, pulling something out of your butt and believing it, and you don't have any you have less evidence. At least they have a book. That's not good evidence, but at least they have a book. You have nothing. Your evidence is I made it up. I think to me that's even, that's
it feels right.
Yeah, it's even more dishonest. I just, because there's nothing you can really. Yeah, it comes down to, well, so where do you get your beliefs from? Yeah, no, just something I feel. And usually it's people that were raised somewhat religious.
They don't want to let go.
They don't want to let go of the one thing, that one little bit, or the fear, or the biggest thing I think is that most people have a hard time saying, I don't know. And I think that's the first thing you have to do is, well, what happened? Well, then why is this? Because that's what happened. People say, well, if not A, B, and C, then what? I don't know. D, who knows? I don't know.
Exactly. I don't know, but that doesn't mean that this is true.
Right.
Right. I just because I don't know exactly what happens after we die doesn't mean that we're going to heaven.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can just insert
or nothing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is there's like this default that if you don't have the exact answer, therefore my explanation wins by default. It's like, no, any explanation you could make up a billion things and put in there. So if you don't know what was there at the Big Bang or before the Big Bang or what caused the Big Bang, then it was God. No, I say it was me. Okay, I say it was a group of redneck aliens who were driving their El Camino through the universe. Like, well, I mean, I can make anything up I want. Like, you can't just. Therefore, it must be my thing that I made up. It's like, no, that's not how it works. You don't get to just. I don't know. So therefore, it's the UFO thing. It's wow. There's some stuff out there that's unexplained. Yes, there is.
That's why it's unidentified.
Yes, exactly. It is unexplained. So by you saying it's aliens, that would be an explanation. Therefore, it would no longer be unexplained. So you can't just, it's unexplained. Therefore, it's alien beings from another planet coming to visit us and anally probe us. Really, that's your next logical, I don't know what that blip in the sky was. Therefore, it must be. Really, you're going to go all the way there? I mean, it could be anything, and that's where you're just going to. It must be this. Well, you don't know, and I'm saying I'm giving you an alternate. It's like that's, and you have people like that. They go, well, you just said you don't know, and I'm telling you, I'm telling you what it is.
And how do you know?
Yeah.
What does your mother think of your new comedy?
My mom loves me no matter what I do. My mom
Has
loves,
she seen it?
Oh, yeah. She came to the taping of this. The funny thing is,
and
I actually
she's sitting there shaking her head.
I have a bit about my mom that I actually got cut out because I did so much time and I cut it down. It wasn't the strongest bit, but I did a bit about my mom being a psychic. And she thought it was funny. I mean, my mom's got a good sense of humor. And I mean, she doesn't obviously agree with me, but she, the funny thing is somebody asked me that in a newspaper interview. And it was over the phone. It was really funny, and my friend Jason keeps trying to get me. He's like, "You got to turn that into a bit." The guy interviewed me, and he said, "Well, so what do you, what is your mom? What do your family? What does your family think of your act? Is your family religious or whatever?" And I said, "No." He said, "What do you think? What does your mom think of your beliefs? What does your family think of your beliefs?" And I said, "Well, they're cool with it." I said, "My mom." Of course, would like if I believed that she was a psychic, but my mom doesn't. She knows I don't. She's a little bit upset that I don't believe she's a psychic, but blah 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 blah. Well, the article came out, and he thought I said sidekick, which I don't know how he came up. We're talking about psychics and ghosts, and he wrote sidekick. I don't know.
Mom's a sidekick.
Yeah, so I'm like, my mom's really upset that she's not a sidekick. It's like
Your comedy team.
Yes, exactly. It's just so funny that it's like, really, sidekick? That's what you came up with out of that. You didn't talk about critical thing. Like you didn't go.
That
I wonder
doesn't
if he
make
meant,
sense.
yes. Why would he say sidekick? Well, maybe he said sidekick. But
has your mom ever performed one of her psychic feats? I don't know what you call them. And you were amazed by it? Like, oh my God, that is amazing. That is true. How did you come up with that?
no.
Oh.
I mean, and I've been around a lot of. I mean, she has her psychic friends network or whatever.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything that's doesn't look like just random guesses to me, or
Do you mention that to them, or you don't want to be that guy?
a little bit to my mom. Like she'll say stuff, and I'm not like mean about it, but I mean she knows what I think. But she says stuff all the time. The biggest problem with my mom, which is it's not just my mom, it's most people who have beliefs like that. Several people I know, friends and relatives, when they have a belief, they state it as if it's fact. And if you don't agree with it, you have to either say something. So people always go, "You're so combative. You're so argumentative." Like, no, you were just in my house and you said, "Well, if you don't take this supplement, you're going to get cancer." If I go, "Okay," then I'm agreeing with you, and I'm not letting that fly. So I go, "Well, I don't believe that, or I don't see any evidence of that supplement curing cancer." So, and then, so you're going to combat me? Yes, I am. So, my mom does that where it's like, well, when I do this, or, this is going to happen, or she says some kind of little psychic prediction thing or whatever. And I have to go, I'm glad you believe that, but I'm not going to change my life based on your prediction or whatever. And sometimes she gets upset by that. It's like, why do you have to combat what I do? I go, because you brought it up. Yeah. Don't bring it up.
You're so negative.
Yeah. Don't make a claim that this is going to happen.
I know.
And expect me not to go, well, sorry, I'm not doing that. I don't buy that. And
I guess a lot of people just are better at biting their tongues and nodding, but and not being combative. But yeah, I'm with you.
It perpetuates the situation.
Yeah,
and then people like that, I think they get more confident in their and they almost get more arrogant in the way they approach people. I mean, I know people that are that way, especially in California. It's really big with food. There's all the GMO arguments, and there's the organic thing, and it's like people, oh, you're eating that? Oh, that's the cause of cancer, and you eat wheat? Oh, no wonder you can't lose weight. Or they just throw these things out there, and you go, actually, that's completely been debunked a million times over, and here's some articles, and I just want to go, no, you're wrong. And you don't want to always start a fight, but at the same time, by allowing them to go, what you're eating is bad, blah, blah, blah. You're starting it.
And those people that are biting their tongues and nodding are complicit, because it gives power to those that are suggesting it, going, well, I've told all these people and they all agree with me. Well,
right.
They didn't actually agree with you. They just didn't actively disagree with you.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my wife about the other day. I actually co-own a gym in a martial arts gym in LA, and I train fighters. I've done it for a long time. It's just like my hobby, but don't really make a living at it. But I in the wrestling and jiu-jitsu world and whatever, in gyms in general, there's always a big problem with staph infections because there's close contact and there's a lot of people that are carriers of staph. So I'm very aware of the symptoms of it, and I can look at somebody and go, no, you got a staph infection. You should probably go get that looked at. And I see it all the time. I've had it before. I know so many people that have had it, and it's just very common, and it's not a big deal if you know what you're looking for. And over and over and over, people will go, yeah, I got a spider bite. It's not a spider bite. That's a staph infection. You should go get some antibiotics. No, I think it's a spider bite. Telling you it's not a spider bite. Yeah, it's probably brown recluse. Well, brown recluses don't exist in California, so it's not a brown recluse. It's a staph infection. No. And then a couple of days later, it's really bad, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, yeah, I got the spider bite. And the doctor goes, oh yeah, well, it's infected now. Here, take this. And then they come back. Yeah, doctor said it was a spider bite, and he gave me this. Oh, he gave you Bactrim, an antibiotic for a spider bite. Interesting. That's what they give for staph infections. And I asked the doctor about that. And I said, what is it with, he goes, oh yeah, he said, I would say close to 100% of people that come in, say, I got the spider bite. And I go, and do you correct him? He goes, nah, somewhere it. He goes, I just, he goes, it doesn't matter. We just go, okay, take this. Then they walk away thinking they had a spider bite, and they don't do anything to prevent staph infection. And then they could become a carrier because, a large percentage of people that once you have it, you can be colonized. And then they can spread it to other people, and they can spread. So you're doing a disservice by not telling them, hey, well, that's a staph infection. Or, and sometimes they say, yeah, it's an infection now, but they don't correct them that there's a spider bite. And I've had that. I can't even count how many times where I've gotten into an argument with somebody at the gym and said, telling you didn't have a spider bite. It was a staph infection from the beginning. They were just not wanting to be combative with you.
Humoring you, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, but that's the same kind of thing where by not saying no, this is by just going, okay, great, here, take this and you'll be good. That lends credence to their claim that it was a spider bite. And they walk away going, yeah, doctor told me it was a spider bite. And I've had that. Doctor said it was a spider bite. And I go, give me the conversation. And then they recount. I go, no, see, you said it was a spider bite. And doctor said, okay, great, take this. It's like, that's not the same as him saying, yes, you got bit by a black widow or something. It just, but it's the same kind of thing. By not saying something, you're lending it credence. And now that person walks away having reestablished or reaffirmed their original belief. And if the original belief is nuts.
You know what your problem is? Facts.
Yes, exactly. We can't let the facts get in the way of our ideas.
All these subjects we've talked about, you touch on in your stand-up act.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, now that you've made a foray into Canada,
yes,
by way of Vancouver, maybe you'll be coming back.
That's my goal.
The Critical and Thinking Tour, it's called. And
yes.
Is that the name of the special too that's coming out sometime in the future?
Yes, exactly. hopefully January. Yeah, it's called Ian Harris Critical and Thinking. It was actually originally we taped it on December 21st, 2012. If we all know that date, that was the Mayan apocalypse.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So originally it was called Live from the Apocalypse, and I was going to do a live feed on Sirius XM radio, and we taped it at 9:00 West Coast time, and it was going to go midnight. So it technically would have been the 22nd. So the idea was, hey, we're still here, and we're going live. And then that last minute, that kind of got fell apart, and we still taped it. But it was originally it was Live at the Apocalypse, but that was just a nice way to get into critical thinking. It wasn't the whole show. There's 2 jokes about the apocalypse in the whole thing. So I didn't want to date it. I didn't want it to be tied to a date that was a year. It takes a while to edit these things and get them out. So I said, well, I'm going to change the title for the TV special, so that people aren't going, that was a year ago. So yeah, we changed it to Critical and Thinking, which I like the.
Well, hopefully we can get it up here in Canada. And if not, I'm sure DVD sometime or online.
Netflix probably.
Netflix.
Yeah,
that's a good way to go.
Which is another option. Originally, when we started talking, Netflix was they're interested and I can definitely go there, but they weren't doing. Netflix doesn't do marketing for big things to do, but not for smaller things. Your movie's on there.
You got to find it yourself.
You got to find it yourself. And if you're Raiders of the Lost Ark, people, let's see if Raiders of the Lost Ark is. I'm going to watch it. But people aren't going, let's see if some random comedy special about a guy I've never heard of is on there. Yes.
I search
you
for
and I do
stand-up,
that.
Yeah.
But now they just did like a couple $1 million one with Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, Russell Peters.
So what happens is, now is a good time because if you go on at the same time, if Netflix puts yours on in the same month as Aziz Ansari or Russell Peters, and people click to watch, 20 million people go to watch Russell Peters, the next one that's going to pop up is the most recent, most relevant title, which is going to be stand-up, and it's going to be their new release. So the next one in the queue is going to be me or whoever is up there. So that is a form of marketing that now's a good time. Yeah, now so I might. There's another thought.
I didn't realize that they put it up for only a month at a time, or however long the duration is. Or is that something you negotiate?
No, they put it up. I think once they buy it, they have it. They have it for a year or whatever. Yeah. But I'm just saying during that first, like right now they're marketing the heck out of their original ones. Mm-hmm. They're not going to market an acquisition. If they pick up a movie or something that's already aired on Showtime or HBO, they're not going to market that. But if they do an original program, if they do House of Cards or they do, Russell Peters, they market that. So to me, and then, and the way Netflix works is if you're watching stand-up comedy, it's going to suggest you watch these other stand-up comedy shows. And the new releases come to the queue first, because if there's something new, that will pop up, and the newest stuff is usually at the top. So if they're marketing Russell Peters and you click on Russell Peters, it's going to say, you might also like, and that's the only real marketing. But before I was like, well, just throwing me on Netflix doesn't guarantee anyone's going to see it.
But it's a good bargaining chip against the network that you're dealing with. Hey, I'm going to take this over to Netflix if you don't act.
Yeah, that is true. And like I said, Netflix is really pushing comedy, which is great for the comedy world, because there's so many great comics out there that just haven't gotten in the right zone or the right network, and that they could. I know some comics that would, if you saw an hour special on them, they would, and the right people saw it, they'd be instant celebrities, and yet they've been doing it forever, and no one knows who they are. It's just their complete, anonymity, a complete obscurity, and it's like, and I would say 3 of my favorite comics in the world are that way.
Give me your names.
What's that?
Give me their names.
One of my favorite comics of all time is a guy named Ron Morey.
Don't know him.
Exactly. He's absolutely hysterical. Mike Pace is
also don't know him.
He's totally different style. He's not, he's very, very physical and over the top. Another guy who's pretty well known. He's fairly well known, but he's not a household name, is Robert Hawkins.
Yeah.
Hawkins to me,
I have his CD, I believe.
Amazing. Robert Hawkins is
he's a road dog.
So funny, though. Yeah. I mean, so clever and so funny. Growing up growing up comedy, meaning in the Bay Area, Johnny Steele. Johnny Steele was my idol. That guy's hilarious. I mean, he's amazing, and he's a Bay Area. He's a hero in the Bay Area, but no one else knows. I mean, not no one, but he's not. He's not a household name by any stretch. He's not. It's not Dave Chappelle. And there's a lot of guys like that I've worked with in the past that I just go, why is this guy?
Yeah, I interviewed a guy recently, a filmmaker, who did a film on comedians, Jewish comedians. And he said that, a good analogy, he said stand-up comics are like an iceberg. The 10% at the top and 90% are below sea level. Right. And they could be great. We just not on our radar.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, and but the good thing now is that with the internet has its good and bad. I mean, there are people that get a sitcom because they did one song parody and it got a billion YouTube hits. So let's give this guy a sitcom. And it's like, yeah, well, so did the farting cat, but I'm not giving the farting cat a sitcom. But on the other hand, you can do your own self-produced stuff, and look at Lewis Black. I mean, the guy made it, quote unquote, went into his 50s. I mean, so you can do your own thing now, and if people like, you're not dependent on, the folks at Comedy Central or whatever who go, well, you're over the age of 26 now, you're not relevant, or whatever it is, and you could say, well, yeah, let me show you how relevant I am, and you can go do your own thing, and pretty soon people are loving what you do, and then you've done it yourself, and with places like Netflix and you can get that exposure, and once people know about you, the word will spread fast. And if you're, if you've got something, and I think it's a really good time for comics right now, to be able to just do comedy. Because when I was, late 90s, early 2000s, you couldn't just do comedy. You had to have a sitcom. You had to have something else for people to go see you. And now people are starting to see comedy for comedy's sake again. You see guys, you see Bill Burr, and I mean, he does some acting, but you see some of these guys that are just comedians. Yeah. They don't have a sitcom. They don't have they're making a fine living just being comedians.
Are you going to stick with it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not, well, like you said, I can't, even if I stop for a little bit, there's no way I would be able to, I just can't. It's too much in my blood.
Ian Harris, thanks. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
And come back soon.
Yes, indeed.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ian Harris, all the way from Los Angeles, California. Like I say, I hope he comes back sometime. And if he does, you should go check him out. All right, next week. Well, this week, I'll tell you, I'm talking to Toronto comic Dave Martin. And hopefully I'll have that ready in time for next Sunday night. No matter what, though, we'll be here Sunday night at 11 o'clock. on CFRO 100.5 FM. Thanks for listening.